Young Joshua was in the hospital room. He had fought a long and hard battle against cancer. Joshua was there with all of his family, and the doctor came in. And the doctor told Joshua and his family that there wasn't much more that they could do to help him. He would soon die. So the doctor left the room. His mom began to cry. She pulled a chair over to the bed, and she grabbed onto Joshua's hand. And she asked Joshua, "Are you scared to die?" Joshua said, "No, Mom. I know Jehovah is definitely going to bring me back in the resurrection." Is the resurrection hope that real to you? If something were to happen to you, can you say, I know Jehovah will bring me back in the resurrection? Why should that hope be real to each and every single one of us? Before we answer those questions, we need to see why the resurrection became necessary. Let's take a look at our first picture. What do you see in this picture? This is how Jehovah created everything. We see a beautiful paradise. Jehovah put amazing plants, amazing waterfalls, rivers. He put their animals and Adam and Eve. And what was the purpose? Well, Adam and Eve would have children. They would fill the earth and subdue it, and they would live how long? They would live forever on this beautiful paradise earth. But if we look out the window, we don't see a paradise earth. What happened? What happened to this paradise? Let's take a look. John chapter 8. Jesus is going to tell us. Jesus was an eyewitness. He saw what happened to Adam and Eve. John chapter 8. Jesus is talking with the Pharisees, and let's enter into this conversation. John 8 and verse 44. John 8, verse 44. He says, you are from your father, the devil, and you wish to do the desires of your father. That one was a murderer when he began, and he did not stand fast in the truth, because truth is not in him. When he speaks the lie, he speaks according to his own disposition, because he is a liar and the father of the lie. What happened with Adam and Eve? We know Jehovah created many angels, and these angels all love Jehovah. They worship Jehovah, but something happened with one of the angels. It says he did not stand fast in the truth, because truth is not in him. It also says when he began, or from the beginning, when he became Satan, he began to hate Jehovah. He began to hate his love, his justice. He may have even pictured the whole earth filled with humans, and all these humans giving glory and honor to him. So what did he do? Well, it says here at the end of the verse, he speaks according to his own disposition, because he is a liar and the father of the lie. Remember, he approached Eve, and he started out with lies right away. He said, "Did God really say?" Let's just think about those words. Did God really say? It'd be like if I had your children in front of me and I asked them about their curfew. Every weekend, what time do you have to be home? They tell me 10 o'clock. 10 p.m. we have to be at home. If not, we get in trouble with our parents. Did your parents really say 10 o'clock? What am I insinuating about you as a parent? You're not loving. You're not kind, you're strict, you're withholding something from your children. And then Satan went on to say to Eve, did God really say that you can't eat from all the trees of the garden? It'd be like if you told your kids not to go to a certain restaurant. But I said, did your parents really say you couldn't eat from all the restaurants? Again, insinuating that you're not loving. You're withholding something from your children. And then Satan went on to tell Eve that if you eat of this fruit, you'll become like God, knowing good and bad. Not only that, you won't die. You will not die, Eve. So what happened? If we go back to the beginning of the verse, it says that one was a murderer when he began. Adam and Eve joined Satan's rebellion. Satan became a murderer because of their sin. Their sentence was death. And because of their sin, death and sin spread to all men. And we can remember they had children, Cain and Abel. And what happened with faithful Abel? He was killed by his brother, Cain. And other ones along the line, such as Enoch, Abraham, Sarah, Jacob. Different ones died, friends of Jehovah. That's why the resurrection hope became necessary, to fulfill Jehovah's purpose for the earth so that mankind could live forever in a paradise earth. Why can we be certain that the resurrection hope will occur? Like Joshua, why can we all say, I know, if something happens to me, I know Jehovah is definitely going to bring me back in the resurrection? Let's take a look at 3 reasons why we can be certain that the resurrection will occur. Let's see if we can find the first reason in Acts. Let's look at chapter 17. Acts 17. And we'll read together verse 31. Acts 17:31. It says, because he has set a day on which he purposes to judge the inhabited earth in righteousness by a man whom he has appointed. And he has provided a guarantee to all men by resurrecting him from the dead. You see the first reason why we can be certain that the resurrection will occur? Jehovah has provided us a guarantee. Jehovah has always existed. He has never had a beginning, nor will he have an end. Jehovah has always fulfilled his word. He has never, ever lied, and he guarantees that there will be a resurrection. And if you look at the study note, the guarantee or a proof, what was the proof that Jehovah would fulfill his guarantee? By resurrecting him, or resurrecting Jesus. Let's think about what Jehovah had to do in order to resurrect Jesus. How long did Jesus live in the heavens before he came to earth? Millions upon millions upon millions of years. Imagine all those conversations that he had with Jehovah. And then Jesus, by Jehovah's side as a master worker, seeing, observing Jehovah, creating everything, every planet, every star, the different angels. Not only that, the Israelites, all that happened with them, all that happened while Jesus was on the earth, and what would happen in the future. In order to resurrect Jesus, Jehovah had to put all that into his mind and his heart. A guarantee or a proof. What's the proof? By resurrecting him. The Insight book says this was the greatest display of Jehovah's power ever. He gave us a guarantee with a proof by resurrecting his son. Second reason, let's look at 1 Corinthians. 1 Corinthians chapter 15. The setting, some in the congregation have doubts about the resurrection hope. The resurrection isn't really real to them. Paul wants to reach their hearts. How does he do it? 1 Corinthians 15. What's he talk about? Verse 3, we notice there, the resurrection of Christ. What's he say about Jesus' resurrection? Verse 4, he says, and that he was buried, yes, that he was raised up on the 3rd day, according to the scriptures. According to the prophecies such as Psalm 22, Isaiah 53, he fulfilled this by way of his resurrection. Not only that, verse 5, and that he appeared to Cephas. Look at the footnote, or Peter. Remember, he appeared to him. He likely had a private conversation with him. Peter was down. And Jesus helped Peter to have faith in the resurrection. Not only that, and then to the 12, verse 6. After that, he appeared to more than 500 brothers at one time, most of whom are still with us, though some have fallen asleep in death. Yes, friends in the Corinth congregation, you might have doubts about the resurrection, but there were over 500 that saw it. And if we look at the picture, how would that have been? Imagine, this was a life-changing event for them. This made the resurrection hope real in their mind and in their heart. They saw Jesus. And if you still have doubts, talk to them. Talk to them about it. One of your faithful friends who saw it, who you trust, ask them. Not only that, if we look at verse 7, it says, after that, he appeared to James, likely Jesus' half-brother. He hadn't come into the truth yet. He still had doubts. But Jesus appeared to him, talked with him. The resurrection hope became real to him, and he came in the truth. Verse 8, but last of all, he appeared also to me, as if to one born prematurely. It's likely here Paul saw his future resurrection, his future role in the heavens, his working with Jesus as one of the 144,000. The resurrection hope became real to Paul at this time. So we have a guarantee, and then over 500 saw the resurrected Jesus. Third reason, John 11. John 11, the setting here in John 11, Jesus is having a conversation with his disciples. Let's enter into this conversation. John 11, and we'll read verse 11. John 11, verse 11. Jesus, in the conversation, after he said these things, he added, Lazarus, our friend, has fallen asleep, but I'm traveling there to awaken him. The disciples then said to him, Lord, if he is sleeping, he will get well. Jesus, however, had spoken about his death, but they imagined he was speaking about taking rest in sleep. Then Jesus said to them plainly, Lazarus has died. The third reason, Jesus demonstrated the reality of the resurrection by way of his speech and by way of his actions. What do we see here about his speech? Lazarus, my friend, is just sleeping. I'm going to go and wake him up. It's likely Jesus was trying to prove that those who were dead were just sleeping and they could be easily awakened in the future. How does this help us? Well, let's illustrate this, how Jehovah and Jesus feel. It'd be like if a father has his two babies in his hand, and one is sleeping, one is awake. Well, he looks at the one that's awake and he begins to talk to him and say, son, I love you so much. I'm so happy that you are my son. To the one that is sleeping, he also looks at him, but he whispers, son, I love you so much. I can't wait till you're awake. He loves both sons, but one is sleeping and one is awake. The same with Jehovah. That's how he feels. That's how Jesus feels. That's why we know the resurrection will occur. We have a guarantee, along with proof, by the resurrection of Jesus. More than 500 saw the resurrection of Jesus, and Jesus proved that the resurrection is a reality, that it is possible by way of his speech and by way of his actions. How can this hope help us? We know it's going to happen, but how can it help us? If you've lost someone in death, you felt the sting of death. It hits your heart so hard. Maybe you've been in the hospital room when somebody has died, and somebody right by the bed just lets out a blood-curdling scream. Why? Because it hurts. It hurts our heart. One widow, 20 years after the death of her husband, she still would cry. She still felt that pain in her heart. How does the resurrection hope help us when we feel that sting of death go through our heart? Well, let's continue with this account. Let's see what happened next. If we go to John 11, Jesus went towards the house of Lazarus. He wanted to talk to his sisters, and he talks with Martha first. Let's enter into this conversation. John 11 and verse 21. John 11 and verse 21. Martha then said to Jesus, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. Yet even now I know that whatever you ask God for, God will give you. Jesus said to her, your brother will rise. Martha said to him, I know he will rise in the resurrection on the last day. What do we notice here? Well, if we look at the picture, we can see Martha. How does she feel? She's sad. That sting of death, it hit her heart. Maybe she cried, maybe she screamed out when she heard that Lazarus had died. What is she thinking about? What's on her mind? Verse 24, I know Lazarus, I know my brother. I know he will rise in the resurrection. Which resurrection? On the last day. How does this help us? Well, when we feel the sting of death, we can be like Martha. We may cry, but the resurrection hope can be a source of encouragement for us. One sister often meditates on if Jehovah will ask us to build a house next to our house for that loved one that he's about to resurrect. Or will he ask us to prepare a room for them? We don't know. We have to wait and see. But imagine if he asked us to prepare a room for them. If you can think of your loved one, the one you miss, who is resting, how would you prepare that room? The sister can imagine making a special quilt for her sister, painting, putting that painting up, maybe some photos of different things that they did years ago, special things. What would you put in the room? Where would you put it? Can you picture that? Another brother, he often meditates on seeing his father again. He meditates on that first meal. What it would be like. What would you prepare for your loved one that you miss? What was their favorite food? Well, this brother imagines making his dad apple pie. And he would have to plant the apple trees, and he would practice with different pies along the way. And when that time comes, he can visualize that dinner where his dad comes in, his whole family is there, and the conversations that they will have. His dad doesn't know it, but he has a granddaughter. Can you imagine that first meeting that our loved ones will have with the ones they don't know yet? They're family members. We'll be able to introduce them. What about ones in the congregation? During the pandemic, we have lost many different brothers and sisters. We've attended many funerals on Zoom. How can this be a source of encouragement for us? Well, we miss those dear brothers and sisters. We miss that brother that would always welcome us, that had that warm smile and made us feel right at home. Imagine when he's resurrected and he's in your congregation again. Or that sister that just gave the best comments. Imagine when the conductor tells her sister, I missed your comments so much. Thank you for that comment. Or the zealous sister that always invited us on her Bible studies and in service. Well, now she can come with us and she can help us on our Bible studies. We can picture those things. Isn't that a source of encouragement for us? What about Joshua? His experience is in today's Watchtower. And it says that Joshua loved basketball. Can you imagine passing Joshua the basketball? He hits the game-winning shot. You go over and you give Joshua a high five. And then as you're walking back to eat with all the friends, you tell Joshua, thank you so much for your good experience. After I read your experience, I made it a study project. The resurrection hope. I wanted it to become real to me. I began to examine different Bible accounts, all that happened, and I could visualize seeing my loved ones again. That is a source of encouragement. What if We are sentenced to death. What if we are in the hospital bed and the doctor comes in and tells us we are about to die? Will the resurrection hope help us? Let's take a look at something Paul said. He went through near-death experiences in the second letter to the Corinthians. Paul tells the congregation about this. Let's see what he says. 2 Corinthians chapter 1. Let's see what these experiences Paul went through. 2 Corinthians chapter 1 and in verse 8. 2 Corinthians chapter 1 and in verse 8. Paul says, "For we do not want you to be unaware, brothers, of the tribulation we experienced in the province of Asia." What was this tribulation? It may have been the mobs that were organized to go against Paul. It may have been Paul was even placed in an arena to go against wild beasts. How did he feel about this? It says we were under extreme pressure, beyond our own strength, so that we were very uncertain even of our lives. In fact, we felt that we had received the sentence of death. What got Paul through this? This was so that we would trust not in ourselves, but in the God who raises up the dead. The resurrection hope was real to Paul. He saw his future resurrection. He likely meditated often on what it would be like, what it'd be like serving in heaven, what his assignments would be. That will help us. If we are ever sentenced to death, or if the doctor ever comes in the room and tells us we don't have much longer to live, the resurrection hope can be a source of encouragement for all of us. Well, how long will we have to wait? How long will we have to wait to see Joshua, to see our loved ones again? Let's take a look. Let's take a look at Job 14. Job chapter 14 and in verse 14. Job 14, verse 14. What is the setting here? We know that Job was an inch from the grave. Job had just experienced 4 natural disasters. He saw his children die. Job had cancer from his head to his toe, cancerous boils. He even thought about dying. Let's see what he's thinking about. Job 14, verse 14. It says, "If a man dies, can he live again? I will wait all the days of my compulsory service until my relief comes." Compulsory service, what's that mean? Job is talking about the time that he would spend in the grave. Job didn't have a choice of how long that would last. It was a compulsory service. Until when? Until my relief comes. Job was thinking in the future of the future resurrection. How is his faith so strong in the resurrection? He says, "You will call, you Jehovah. You will call and I will answer you. For you will long for the work of your hands." Job had meditated on this hope. He knew something about Jehovah. He had talked with them, and he knew Jehovah longed for the work of his hands. Or if we look at the footnote, it says yearn. It also says here long. What does that mean for us? One sister who lost her husband in death after 25 years of marriage explained it this way. She says, "Jehovah misses my husband more than I do." How can that be? 25 years of marriage? All those experiences together? Well, she would explain to the friends, Jehovah saw him as an embryo. Jehovah saw when he was born. Jehovah saw something special in my husband. He drew him into the truth. Jehovah heard his dedication prayer. Jehovah saw his baptism. Jehovah saw when he was appointed a ministerial servant. Jehovah saw when he was appointed an elder. He talked with him intimately. throughout the day. Jehovah misses my husband more than I do. That's what the sister would tell everyone. Isn't that true? Jehovah yearns to see our loved ones again. Like that father with the two babies in his hand. One baby is awake, one baby is sleeping. And he's talking with the baby that's awake. And with the baby that's sleeping, he keeps looking at the watch, his clock on the wall, his watch on his wrist. He yearns for the time when the nap time is over and he can say, son, wake up. I love you, son. That's how Jehovah feels. He yearns for that time. How can we exercise faith in this resurrection hope? What happened with Joshua? Joshua, in his experience, often for the cancer treatment that he was receiving, the doctors would give chemotherapy along with blood transfusions. Joshua wanted to maintain his integrity, so he refused the blood transfusions. The doctors were okay with saying that Joshua was a responsible minor. And what did they do? They went to the courts just to confirm the decision. The judges said, no, Joshua cannot be considered an adult. The doctors should be in charge of his treatment. So his case went to the Court of Appeals. Joshua had to defend his case before nurses, before judges, before different doctors. One day, Joshua told his mom, when you leave the room, sometimes the doctors come in and they tell me, Joshua, you need a blood transfusion. What did Joshua tell the doctors? I just want to live by Jehovah's law. He knows what is best for me. The best thing for me is to respect the sanctity of life. And if I die, I will live again. The doctors were amazed at Joshua's faith. What did they do? Well, one doctor even came in and hugged both the parents and said he has never seen someone with a faith so strong. What made Joshua's faith so strong? His experience said his faith in God convinced him that he would come back in the resurrection. Remember what he told his mom? I know Jehovah is definitely gonna bring me back in the resurrection. In conclusion, what are we going to remember about this talk? Well, if we look at our last picture, what do you see there? Can you imagine the day when Jehovah tells Jesus, today's the day? Today is the day. Which day, Father? The resurrection. Can you imagine how Jesus is going to work? Who do you see there being resurrected? Do you see Joshua? Yes, we do. Why? Because as we learned in this talk, Jehovah has provided us a guarantee. Not only that, by way of this guarantee, he gave us proof that the resurrection would occur. Jesus, the resurrected Jesus, appeared to over 500 people. And Jesus demonstrated that the resurrection hope is a reality, that it will happen by his speech and by his actions when he was on the earth. Who else do you see there? You see your loved one? Yes, you do. Can you imagine that first hug? Can you imagine that first meal? Can you imagine attending a meeting side by side with your loved one? Going to an assembly together? Yes, you can. Why? Because the resurrection hope is real to you.